Video games are beautiful.
Otacon, even the dead have ears.
Well, sometimes. So I understand when people get defensive after another gaming remaster or remake gets teased or announced. Nobody wants their childhood favorite to be defiled and plopped out like cheap sausage. I get it. But have you played Perfect Dark lately? Ooh, when we were little kids, we thought these graphics were the peak. It would never get any better. Needless to say, it did, but going back now, it's not just the aging textures which is expected. The problem is, you'll get maybe 20 FPS max, and during heavy action, you're talking about single-digit slideshows. It's rough, man. So in 2010, when the remaster of Perfect Dark released on Xbox Live Arcade, it was beautiful. It was the game we all knew and loved a decade prior, but with crisp textures, modern controls, and 60 frames per second. It just felt so good. And even though I still have a ton of love in my heart for the original, it's hard to argue that the remaster of Perfect Dark wasn't the superior version. I played a little bit of it recently and it hit me. What other games could benefit from a remaster or even a full-blown remake? I know some of you would answer with, enough remakes, how about some new original games? And you see, I know what you're saying, but A, what would you like me to do about that? Look, I'm trying. And B, the 9th generation of consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, has been a hollow crater with a few shiny diamonds in the rough. This isn't bitter old dude stuff. I'm not saying that only old games are good. No. A lot of old games have aged horribly, but this generation has largely been a bust, man. Outside of the indies, we've had the annual FPS slop with a handful of really solid, if derivative, Souls-like games, and a few RPGs sprinkled throughout. And for the first time in my life anyway, the price of consoles has only gone up as they've aged, and significantly so. It's bullshit. So, you'll forgive me if I look to the past for the best gaming has to offer, and that brings us directly to our topic today. The games on my list here are great, for sure, but some of them can be difficult to find legally or acquire affordably, and the ones that can be bought on the level often require fan-made patches or mods to get running well, and not everyone has the technical acumen or the desire to spend all that time tinkering just to get a game running. Some of these titles are simply stuck in generational purgatory, only available on consoles that stopped being produced a decade ago, and some games here could simply benefit from a little modern update and a port to current consoles for the casual gamer that might want to find out why dudes like me are always carrying on about them. Also keep in mind, this isn't a definitive list. Games like The Darkness, Morrowind, Fallout New Vegas, Not 4, Todd, nobody asked for that, The Operative, No One Lives Forever, and Nulf 2, The Punisher from Volition, Rockstar's Manhunt, Darkwatch, Metroid Fusion, and Blood 2. That's right, Blood 2 could benefit greatly from a remaster or a remake. Oh, and this list is for remasters and or full-on remakes. Look, cut me a break. I couldn't put both in the title, okay? I'll be careful to delineate between the two. A remaster retains the core gameplay, story, and art direction while improving technical aspects that let them run on modern systems and thus become more accessible. This may also possibly include adding in lost or cut content a la Shadow Man Remastered. So without further delay, here's the list of games that deserve a remake or a remaster. Let's start with the big boss. When someone asks me, what's your favorite video game ever? It's so difficult to just narrow it down to a single one. But if we're talking choose right now, life or death, my mind just goes right to Metal Gear 4. I'm a huge fan of the original Metal Gear Solid quadrilogy. I started with the first one on PS1 in '98, and the next 10 years were a beautiful thing indeed. When the first trailer for Metal Gear Solid 4 was released, showing first-person gameplay, I was like, wait, what? And then it turns out Kojima was just being a silly little goose, as he's apt to do. Snake flipped over the soldier you had been watching from the first person, the camera panned up, and there he was. Older than shit! It's been a meme for years now, but when old Solid Snake was revealed, it was like, what? Now, I had already seen the concept art in PlayStation Magazine, PSM, in July of 2005. Oh yeah, hell yeah, I still have that line around here somewhere. So I knew he was going to be old now, but it raised so many questions. And that's on top of the 10 billion questions we already had from the ending of Metal Gear Solid 2. Christ. But now is not the time to go over the story. That would take a very special review, but to put it plainly, there are a ton of cutscenes. Long cutscenes, like an hour long for one of them. It's insane. Kojima and his team went all out. And there are people that mock this and deride the game for being an extended movie crammed into a game, or maybe it's the other way around. But anyway, there are people that hate the story, and they hate how convoluted, ridiculous, and difficult to follow it is. Well, first off, you can skip those cutscenes. Nobody's making you watch them. Secondly, let me tell you something, and I want you to listen really closely, little man. I get it. I totally get it. It is ridiculous. The story is absurd, frankly, and the cutscenes tend to go on forever. It's wildly self-indulgent and a bit obnoxious. Basically Kojima. But you want to know something? It was a love letter to the fans, and it had references, connections, and resolutions to and for nearly every minor and far-out plot thread from the previous games, as well as establishing its own identity with PMCs, proxy wars, Drebin, the rebirth of Raiden, Sonny, and the BB unit. Look, I don't know how you feel, but I love the story in this game immensely. I've watched every cutscene a dozen times probably. Alright, so what does this have to do with a remaster? Well, it's actually really simple. Metal Gear Solid 4, as of this writing, has never been released outside of the PS3. I mean, never once. It's crazy. The game is a monumental technical achievement. Kojima clearly recruited the top-level artists and programmers for this title, and it shows. It still looks incredible. Just look at this footage. In 2008, my jaw was constantly on the floor. This thing was a behemoth. Large, highly detailed character models, amazing smoke, fire, and particle effects, not to mention some watermelon physics. It looks incredible. But when the action kicks up and a lot is happening on screen, the game does tend to chug, and the slowdown directly affects the gameplay. As amazing as it was for its day, and the Cell processor really was quite strong, even if it did get paired with an underpowered GPU, sad face, the PS3 simply couldn't handle everything that the game was throwing at it. Also, I hope your day is going okay as you watch this. If you could like the video, I'd really appreciate it. It helps a lot. Thank you. A modern remaster of MGS4 running at 120 FPS in 1440p or 4K for you fancy pants with mouse and keyboard just oh god, oh man. Now, to be honest, does this slowdown make the game less enjoyable to me? No, absolutely not, though to be fair, nostalgia is a hell of a drug and I am biased. But ideally, you're playing this game nice and slowly, sneaking along quietly like a legless reptile of some sort. And in those quiet moments, the game runs just fine, and the gameplay of MGS4 is some of my absolute favorite in third-person history. Combat works smoothly and is totally viable. Trust me, I played a lot of Metal Gear Online back in the day, but the stealth gameplay, with the use of the awareness ring and the octo camo, along with the older tricks like magazines and cardboard boxes, is just brilliant. It's absolutely sterling. That you can play the game completely non-lethally and run around with nothing more than a tranq pistol and a knife, or nothing if you really want, is beautiful. The bosses are typical over-the-top Metal Gear awesomeness. The Mark II robot is a stroke of freaking genius, as is the Drebin shop. So, to see Metal Gear Solid 4 come back to us in an updated remaster with all the modern bells and whistles would be so utterly exciting, I can't even begin to tell you. A smooth frame rate, modern resolutions, yes, and a remaster. The original game, all done up. Not an Unreal 5 remake, no. We need the original, just better. And who knows? If the rumors about the Volume 2 collection are true, maybe someday we will. At least, we better. You hear me, Hotshot?
Yeah, I heard you, Hotshot.
On a long list of video games that I wish more people knew about, 2003's Dredd First Death is near the top. Come to think of it, on the list of films I wish more people would watch, 2012's Dredd is also near the top. It's like the coolest franchise ever, and it never gets the mass respect it deserves. I tell you, if I were a rich man, I'd dump money into an open-world Dredd game in the vein of Grand Theft Auto. As played out as open-world games are nowadays, imagine freely patrolling a massive version of Mega City 1 as the titular Dredd. God damn the possibilities. Anyway, good luck with that, but at least a really solid game already exists. Developed by Rebellion, the studio behind Alien vs. Predator from '99, and more recently the stellar Sniper Elite games, Dredd First Death is an FPS that really should be remade, but man, we should at least have a remaster. Neither are likely, but in this current era we live in with the discourse surrounding law enforcement and the line between protection and oppression being fiercely debated, Dredd First Death is also timely. But it's not just the modern day beep boop cops are bad writing that's oh so clever. The general satire and commentary on society as a whole is somehow even more relevant now than it was in 2003. If the NPCs had smartphones, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You can also arrest people for loitering and being fatter than shit, which is awesome. That's if you can resist the obese jiggle physics.
Bet you're just dying to frisk me.
Ooh. Seriously though, the game's sense of humor is a mix of dry, but over the top and totally ridiculous, just like the comic series. But that's hardly its only quality. The levels are linear, certainly, but they have this illusion of scale and massive grandeur. And although the graphics are very much 2003, the color palette is gorgeous. And some of the effects, such as dynamic light from a burning vampire, are very pretty. Ragdoll physics are fun, and you'll even see a skeleton left behind after an incendiary shot does its job. The soundtrack is well done too, with a few notes that have some shades of Vangelis at times. Most importantly though, it's just a very fun game, and ultimately that's what really matters. The mechanics do feel a bit of the time, but not so outdated that it's prohibitive, and those could be upgraded certainly. Dredd is the law, so it's not just about blasting everything. Shooting a weapon out of a perp's hands lets you then shout them down for an arrest. Sometimes they'll get scared during battle and just surrender. The more arrests you have, the higher your end of level score is. It's simple, but it's surprisingly satisfying to kill as few people as possible, instead doling out the cube sentences. But the weapons do have great impact, and things like the little blood bursts really sell the effects. The Lawgiver is such a badass weapon, with burst fire mode, armor-piercing rounds, high explosives, ricochet rounds, and of course, incendiary.
Hotshot.
Secondary weapons can be swapped as you go. These include an LMG, a shotgun, a pistol, a sniper, etc. They're all fun, and none of them are boring or underpowered. It's a short game, but it's a damn good time. It even has split-screen co-op and bot matches if you're into that, and I am. Here again lies the issue. A console copy, if you can find one, like I totally legally did, I just lost the box, it can be bullshit expensive. I saw a CIB GameCube copy at a local retro store for over $80. That's just plain silly, which is why I totally bought it, elsewhere. But seriously, I do own a legal copy that I paid money for on Steam, and it doesn't work. The game just poops the bed on launch. I can't even try it. Like, you charged me real money for this, dude. I scoured PC Gaming Wiki and some other forums, and the solution, if you want to call it that, is a fan patch that might or might not work. And it's not even for this game, it's a generalized pseudo driver module. Oh, and I tried to download it. I immediately got a warning that told me, hey look man, this download might be malicious, are you sure about that? Now, it could be a false positive, of course, it could be utterly harmless. But to be honest, I'm becoming very peculiar about what I download anymore. I've been on the high seas a time or two, trust me, but my days of risking a shady file to maybe possibly sort of play a game from 23 years ago are dwindling. I'm just not that desperate. And now, of course, I wait for the comments that tell me how to run it in Windows 7 and, oh my god, dude, it's so easy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, thanks for the help, but I shouldn't even have to do that, is my point, and neither should you. This game should be available for everyone, and it should work preferably without nonsense. I would so dearly love for Night Dive to bless this underrated classic with their magic. As for now, it's doing life in the ISO cube. I wish it could come out to play. Haha, you get it? Hey, so what was that I was saying about favorite games? Shit, I might have to change my answer. Look, I'm not gonna mince words. I love the Warriors with every fiber of my being. I cannot emphasize how much I love this game. Rockstar just decided, hey, we're gonna make a game about a late 70s cult hit film from Walter Hill, except that the first 75% of our game is going to be a prequel. And then they just went ahead and nailed it. This was during Rockstar's glory days, when they were rebellious and they took chances, simply because they had the vision, they had the cash flow, and they had the balls. Bully, Smuggler's Run, The Warriors, Manhunt, games that were a rare mix of fun, artistic, bold, and just well-crafted all around. Okay, so let me put it simply. I achieved 100% on this game, co-op included, about 5 times back in the day. I played this game constantly when I was about 16. It's literally the first thing I ever purchased with my very first paycheck from my very first job. I had to clean up bird droppings under this mean-ass, bitch-ass macaw named Leonard to save the money to get it. One of the simplest, happiest memories of my life was a frigid winter night where my brother and I played the Warriors in co-op for about 5 hours straight. We had a shitty folding chair, a beanbag, and a blue light bulb in the room to give it that extra moody, almost liminal feel. It was great, but it's not all memories. I played this on stream recently and fell in love all over again. It's a genuinely fun video game, and that's something that holds up forever. The fighting system is much deeper than you'd think it would be, with a ton of combos, grappling moves, environmental interactions, and various weapons to use. Each warrior has a rage meter that builds up, and when unleashed, your attacks become devastating. As the war chief, you can easily issue commands to your troops, commands to fight hard, wreck the environment, or to scatter when the cops show up. They're fun to use and they don't get in the way. And each warrior is unique. They aren't so different that you have to relearn the controls or anything, but each member does things a little bit better or a little bit worse. Ajax, for instance, builds up his rage meter quicker and does big damage, but he sucks at tagging with spray paint. Spray paint costs money, so it can actually make a difference. But on the other hand, Little Rembrandt is pretty wimpy during battle, but he's the artist, so tagging is much easier. Oh God, I love this game. This might be my favorite PS2 game ever, honestly, and that's the deepest pool to choose from, so breaking into shops and swiping tons of loot, stealing car radios, mugging, snorting flash to heal. So yeah, it's a game where you're a complete degenerate scumbag. Rockstar wasn't trying to make gang life look cool or glamorous. The violence is genuinely intense sometimes. Just wait until you sneak up on a Turnbull from the shadows. Ooh. But there's something so, how do I say this, distant about it. There's such an insane amount of charm to this game, and with each character. You do terrible stuff, but because of the graphics, which even back then weren't that good, your mind kind of just says, it's okay. It's just a game, enjoy this, have fun. And that's why I think a remaster would be perfect. We don't need a remake. Hyper-realistic graphics would spoil the charm, in my opinion, and make things way more grim and repellent. Again, it's a game for adults, there's no question, but The Warriors doesn't feel illicit the way Manhunt does, for instance. However, there are many improvements that could be brought in. Firstly, the co-op. Couch co-op was a blast. I told you my little story, but when you're close to each other, you'll share the screen. When you split up and run off, the screen would split. It worked well enough, and I can't really think of a better way to do it locally, honestly, but obviously online co-op would do the trick. God, I can't tell you how badly I love to play through this again with someone. Secondly, the technical aspects could be improved, of course. Higher frame rates, improved texture quality, fast or even non-existent loading would all be greatly appreciated. Maybe even an adjustment for the in-game camera, as it can be a fickle bitch on occasion. Have I mentioned yet how much I love The Warriors? If you've never played it, it's kind of tricky to get a hold of anymore. There were the PS2, Xbox, and PSP versions, so you have that route if you like. You can get it on PS4 with trophy support and all that stuff, and that's great, and it works well. There is a way to get it on PS5 last time I checked, but it's broken and it's so poorly optimized that it's not even worth it. Now, what kind of shit is that? A group of emulator wizards can get the PS2 version up and running well for free, but Sony and/or Rockstar just couldn't be bothered. You know I love every game on this list, but if you had me pick one single game to make a triumphant return to the modern platforms, it would absolutely be The Warriors. This is a game that you could play for dozens of hours, seriously, and want to come back for more. There's an endless charm to it, and I didn't even talk about little details like the diegetic radios, picking up hats during battle, or the chatter from the streets of New York that make the place feel so alive. The Warriors is good. Real good.
The best.
Good thing I'm not afraid of heights.
I made a video titled Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is the best stealth game ever. Now, I do mean what I said, but can I be honest with you? I had also reserved that title for a video on Thief that I've been wanting to do for a while now. But I really wanted to do Redux reviews of the first 3 Splinter Cells, so it was kind of put on hold, I'm afraid. Anyway, my point is, I consider Thief 1 and 2 on par with Chaos Theory, and I hold them all in equal regard. Thief 1, The Dark Project, is one of the best video games ever made, period. Is it perfect? No, of course not, but it's a masterclass in stealth/tomb raid gaming, and for my money, a seriously underrated horror game too. Looking Glass Studios were light years ahead of their time in the ImSim department with Ultima in '92, but they also really pioneered first-person stealth gaming with Thief in '98. Metal Gear is basically the godfather of stealth games, bringing the genre to the mainstream, but where Metal Gear was more about stealth combined with cutting-edge military technology, mechs, and over-the-top boss fights, Thief was much more grounded. Our protagonist, Garrett, doesn't use infrared goggles, remote-controlled missiles, or radar. Instead, you have to depend on your eyes and ears, and I emphasize ears because, in large part thanks to Eric Brosius, audio director at Looking Glass during those days, Thief has some of the absolute best sound design in all of gaming history. It's really in a class of its own. If you know much of my channel, you know how much I love to highlight when games do audio right, and there is no finer example than Thief. This isn't hyperbole, it's crucial for the player to understand as well. Hearing guards trudging about, eavesdropping on their chatter, or even listening to a certain song grow louder as you approach your treasure. Garrett doesn't have a thief vision that helps him see through walls. You need to listen. Surfaces make a lot of noise as well, particularly wood, metal, and stone. You have to find carpeted areas where you can, use moss arrows to dampen your footsteps, or just walk very softly to sneak by. As much as I love Splinter Cell, and Lord I do, many things that I praise about that series were actually done first in Thief. Taking out lights with Sam Fisher's pistol, Garrett had water arrows for torches. Using a sticky cam to make noise or release noxious gas, Garrett had noisemaker and gas arrows. Using shadows to hide and a light meter to see how exposed you were, Garrett had the light gem. Guards noticing open doors, security cameras, lock picking, crouching before dropping from on high to dampen the noise. You must forgive my ranting, I just can't say enough good things about Thief the Dark Project. But if there has been any game in the history of video games that could use a special Night Dive remaster, it's this one, especially after seeing how System Shock 1 and 2 turned out. Oh lord. The basic stuff like improved frame rates, adjustable FOV, texture quality improvements, and performance for modern rigs and availability on consoles is all pretty obvious. I also think that some accessibility options, such as visual indicators for guards closing in to help hearing impaired gamers, would also be lovely and kind. As good as the sound design is, not everyone is afforded this luxury, and the gameplay is still stellar and worth experiencing. But what more can be added? Firstly, make the Black Parade mod canon. If you've never played Blood, first off, shame on you, it's the best FPS ever. Secondly, a fan-made mod called Death Wish is what many fans consider to be the real Blood 2. It's that highly regarded. Well, Night Dive thinks so too, and in their upcoming Blood remaster, the newest remaster that is, they're including it officially. The Death Wish mod is now canon, and the devs must be so proud, and we as the player are the beneficiaries. Smashing! This is exactly what should be done for the Black Parade, a fan mod that follows the original Thief campaign with a new protagonist, Hume. There are all kinds of nifty changes to the original formula while not straying too far from what you'd know. Having this mod officially supported would be a big deal and would allow even more people around the world to appreciate the huge amount of work that went into it. Next, I think an option for a customizable difficulty would be wonderful. Now, don't crinkle your nose at me, Taffer. I'm not saying that we should have gaming journalist difficulty mode with bright flashing arrows or a glowing trail to follow, but giving players more variety in difficulty would be cool. Say you want to keep the no-kill rule of expert while only requiring the normal mode treasure. Add an option to put helmets on more guards for less blackjack potential. Give an option to eliminate the loot requirements, or hey, give an option to require 100% loot. Let people play the game how they would like to play it. Or perhaps incorporate some optional playstyle difficulty settings, like the Minimalist project for Thief Deadly Shadows. Hey, as long as they keep the standard difficulty settings as an option, which were brilliant by the way, it shouldn't affect how you prefer to play. Next, sword play should be improved. Now hold on, don't click away. I'm fully aware that the sword is a last resort and is really more of a punishment for being sloppy. It's not the main focus of gameplay. I'm also well aware that Garrett is a thief, not an assassin, so I'm not saying that he needs to suddenly be able to dance around like Geralt of Rivia, but it sure would be nice to have some expanded maneuvers, especially when fighting stuff like spiders and the undead. Maybe even a whetstone item to purchase before a mission. The whetstone could improve the blade's edge and thus give it more power for a handful of strikes. But if you get careless and sword happy, the blade will dull and you're right back to the standard. Shoot, make the whetstone really expensive. So if you do want to use it, you're basically forced to trim down on moss arrows and holy water, etc. I'm just brainstorming. Also, I think an inventory wheel a la the Quake 1 and 2 remasters would be awfully handy. Again, the purist might shit bricks here, and that's fine, whatever. Take a Gatorade and ice your big brain. But this is a quality of life improvement that would make the game better without disrupting anything crucial. A mission select screen would be absolute money as well, a la Thief 2014. Yeah, that's right. I said a nice thing about Thief 2014, God help us all. Another amazing option, and I know this is a bit of a pipe dream, would be a collection of fan missions to select from after you complete the main game. Can you imagine how excellent that would be? Shit. Support for fan mods was a thing for the 25th anniversary remaster of System Shock 2, so perhaps it's not too far-fetched. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, and most controversial, is the potential for adjusting certain levels. For instance, the Thieves Guild from Gold could do with a bit more texture variety or landmarks to help the player from getting lost, or maybe balance the layout to avoid so much incessant backtracking. You could also incorporate the Gold to Dark mod right from the menu, eliminating the gold missions for people that don't like them, and removing mages from the Lost City and all that stuff. Then you have mod options to pick from like Fairy Light, X-Radar, the Dark mod, and many more that could be considered for inclusion. Oh, anyway, I fear that I may be going on too long for this one, but as I said, I simply can't think of a series more deserving of a proper remaster, especially after seeing the love and care put into System Shock. And notice that I said series because, of course, you have to do Thief 2 as well. People like myself use our platforms to talk about underrated or forgotten games, but when it comes to underrated studios, Midway Games deserves a massive amount of respect. Area 51 is a classic. I had a video on that whole series a while back. Still fun. NBA Hang Time and Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey on the N64 were huge parts of my young childhood. Seriously, I have crazy fond memories of these games. And they made Doom 64, which is my favorite Doom game. You heard what I just said. But during the 6th generation of consoles, Midway was switched on. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance and Deception, and Shaolin Monks, and Unreal Championship 2 The Liandry Conflict. God damn! All those games could have easily made this list, but if there's one game that I think could really stand up to modern scrutiny, it's The Suffering.
Be quiet, you jerry-curled fool.
The story follows Torque, an inmate being booked at Abbott State Penitentiary for killing his family. It's a hell of a plot hook right off the bat, and it only goes from there. After a bit of exposition from the surly prisoners, the lights die and the monsters come out. The Suffering establishes very quickly that this is an M-rated game with a capital M. There's some really cool horror imagery, and the setting of Abbott State is so awesome. It's a big, scary environment, but it also has the charm of those late 90s Dark Castle films, you know what I'm talking about, like House on Haunted Hill? The game has some really awesome graphical effects, like Torque being coated in blood. It's so grungy and cool without being too overly edgy or corny. You even get moments where you can decide to be a good guy or a savage, with two voices like an angel and a devil on your shoulder, encouraging you to go either way. I know some people don't like binary decisions, but I absolutely miss mechanics like this in games. But you know what the most important thing is? The Suffering is damn fun to play. Torque has a wide range of weapons, including melee and firearms. He can dodge roll left or right, and I love how he jumps like Master Chief. No shoes to weigh him down, eh? And let's not forget about the Animorphs monster transformation. Even 22 years later, this game just feels good to play. Oh, and the best part, you could play from third or first person, like the old Hitman games, but a little bit better. I remember thinking it was awesome when The Evil Within 2 gave a free first-person update, but then I remembered The Suffering had done this out of the box years prior. Alright, so I'll save more in-depth opinions for a future date. Trust me, I will. But here's the problem. The Suffering and its sequel, Ties That Bind, were on GOG up until late last year, and then they got delisted. CIB copies on the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox aren't super expensive, but then you need those consoles. Yes, you can emulate. Yes, you can find both games on PC if you look hard enough. It's not that hard, but even then, you might need the unofficial patch. It's wonderful. You just extract the files and paste them into the root folder, overriding what needs to be overridden. Then you delete the 2D sound files to avoid the crashing that happens every 20 minutes. Hopefully. Maybe. You see where I'm going with this? So, I want you to play The Suffering, but let me recreate conversations I've had with people over the years. You ready? Someone will say, I'm a huge fan of scary games, and I like action too. Dude, you should try The Suffering. Is it on PS4? No, PS2. Do you have a computer? I don't know why I'm making myself sound like such a dumb meathead. Do you have a computer? Yeah, but it's not really for gaming. Oh man, just get GOG. Their eyes are already starting to wander at this point. Dude, it's easy. Go to GOG, enter your financial info, buy The Suffering, then go to PC Gaming Wiki and look for a link to an unofficial mod, then go to your root folder and replace, and then download, and then... So look, to you and I, this is all pretty easy, but not everyone is all hardcore like that. Some people work all goddamn day and they want to come home, eat dinner, put their kids to bed, grab their DualSense controller or whatever, and get an hour of gaming in before bed without all the bullshit. A remaster of The Suffering would be ideal for this crowd, and do you know how dope it would be if I could just send you a Steam link where you could buy The Suffering remastered? Ooh, didn't that sound good? Warner Brothers owns the intellectual property now, and there is money just being left on the table. Everyone deserves a chance to play this classic from Midway. Oh, and speaking of Midway classics, so if you watched my review comparing Psi-Ops to Second Sight, you might be wondering why I didn't put Second Sight on here, as I stated in that review that it was a little bit better overall. Well, it absolutely could be here, and it 100% deserves a remake, a full-on remake. It would be so good, but the thing is, Second Sight is on GOG right now for $10, and it ran wonderfully on my previous PC, which was using Windows 10. By the way, I'm not a paid GOG shill, just so you know. I just really love that site, and you can't buy Second Sight on Steam, so there you go. Also, GOG, can you sponsor me? Anyway, you could theoretically play Second Sight today, right now, and you should. Psi-Ops is a great game as well, but it's a lot trickier to play. It's been stuck on the 6th-gen consoles ever since, and it never got the sequel that it deserved, especially after the cliffhanger ending. A remaster or even a cleaned up vanilla re-release would be wonderful, but Psi-Ops is a game that deserves a full-blown remake. Long story short, you're playing as Nick Scryer, a dude with special abilities, things like pyrokinesis, remote view where you basically become a brain drone that flies around, and mind control, where you can control an enemy and even make them eat their own shotgun. It's gnarly. Nick fights back against the Mindgate Company. A crazed general is obsessed with an alien artifact that looks like a bunch of golf balls glued together and yada yada yada. The story is silly. It's pure Saturday morning camp. Not a bad thing, by the way. The thing about Psi-Ops is, okay, so even without all the crazy powers that you unlock, the game is a totally competent, fun third-person shoot 'em up. If it didn't have any powers, it would probably be forgotten, honestly, but it's still a solid game. However, it did have powers, and the big one was TK, telekinesis. To this day, I struggled to think of a game that made it so much fun to play around with a physics engine. Maybe The Force Unleashed, but throwing enemies at each other, hurdling boxes and barrels to knock them over, reaching for items and ammo, stacking objects to go higher, or even just suspending a bad guy in midair while you dump a magazine into him. I just played it about a year ago for the video and just recently to record this footage, and it's just as fun as it was all those years ago. And I played Psi-Ops when it was new. I remember just how mind-blowing this was, particularly on a PS2. And the boss fights, especially the one against Barrett, will always live in my head rent-free. I remember exactly how I felt the first time I played this. I was grinning from ear to ear, just amazed by the spectacle of massive shipping containers and train carts being thrown at me by this giant dude in a purple suit. I couldn't wait to get to school the next day and tell all of my gamer buddies to pick this up as soon as they could. And here I am, over 2 decades later, wishing I could tell you to go and do the same thing. Imagining a scene like this in a modern engine with the enhancements that could come with that is a prospect I can only dream of. I wish I could go back to those days when Midway was around. I wish I could return. Hope! Simply put, Return to Castle Wolfenstein is one of the best games ever, to a point. I can already hear your stubby little fingers telling me I'm wrong, but just listen for a second. It has a lot of qualities from the fun, arcadey blast-em-up shooters from the mid-90s, combined with the expanded, exploratory FPSs from the late 90s, as well as the punishing titles of the early 2000s, of which this game was a bit of a pioneer in, for good or ill. And it was in the glory days before the series took a steep nosedive into a silo of cow manure. The plot isn't super complicated. It starts off with stuffy old men in homeland offices discussing where the protagonist, BJ Blazkowicz, is and what he's doing at that time. And then before you know it, the story dives into BJ uncovering the insane Third Reich occult madness, and then you're fighting zombies in a crypt. It's pure schlock, and I like it like that. But it's not about the story, it's about the Aldo Rain meme, you know what I'm saying? The amount of weapons on offer is great, and most of them are fun to use. This game might have one of my favorite MP40s in World War II gaming history. There's the suppressed Sten, the Snooper rifle, the FG-42, the Venom gun, and on and on. The enemy variety is also a big plus. The standard Schutzstaffel foot troops, the Ubersoldat, the Loper, and of course, the elite guards. If you know, you know. Better yet was the environmental variety. Castles, obviously, forests, the labs, the crypts, and so forth. Here's the thing, I just played through this a few years ago, and it was awesome. This isn't nostalgia goggles talking. The Quake 3 engine, which I'm convinced is the pinnacle of human achievement, I don't care, still looks amazing, and Bill Brown's score is a timeless masterpiece. More importantly, the game is still very fun, still very enjoyable, for the most part. And this is why I asked the people that dislike Return to Castle Wolfenstein to just listen for a second. For all of my love of this game, it's not perfect. Depending on the difficulty, and even on lower rungs, some enemies can be pretty spongy and unbalanced. As much as I love the X-Labs, I have to admit that I did have a few quick load cursing episodes, thanks to some very quick deaths that felt more like the game smothering me instead of a lack of skill. The trial and error of the half-baked stealth system in the forest can be kind of maddening, especially for newcomers, and the final boss fight is just a large lumbering doofus. It's disappointing, especially after the game builds up the hype of the big bad. And this is where a remaster comes in. Now, for keen fans, you might have noticed that the footage switched over to that from a mod called Real Return to Castle Wolfenstein, or Real RTCW, and I absolutely love it. The modders rebalanced several weapons, added several new difficulty settings, tweaked the HUD, and they added in new high-quality textures that don't detract from the original game's vision. There are new enemies, new weapons, as well as beefed up sound plus widescreen support right out of the theoretical box. The fact that you can buy Return to Castle Wolfenstein on GOG or Steam right now for a couple of dollars, I mean, it's literally on sale as I speak these words, and then go download this mod and go full tilt is great. So in a way, the work has already kind of been done, or at least the path has been laid for a full-blown official remaster. Like I said, think of how Night Dive is adopting the Death Wish mod for the upcoming Blood remaster, and you're on the right track, and that's not to speak of the potential of a return to enemy territory. Ooh. Then there's the option to package in content from the PS2 version, subtitled Operation Resurrection, as well as the Xbox port Tides of War. Both console editions offered something a little bit different, and in truth, the first time I ever played this game was with my brother on the Xbox. Split screen co-op, it was wonderful. It even came with Wolfenstein 3D, which was great. It would be great to play the Cursed Sands prologue in a remaster, and even possibly include the light RPG upgrade system from Operation Resurrection, which I think very highly of. But the point is, more people deserve to play Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and Return to Castle Wolfenstein deserves to be played. And a remaster helps with accessibility, and again, this is a big deal. I've seen a swath of new, young Quake and Quake 2 fans discussing how much they love those games because of the Night Dive remaster. It was a game that their uncle used to play when they were kids, and now they get to enjoy it on their Series X or whatever, and that's a great thing. I know the bitter old gatekeepers peer out of their blinds like Squidward, only wanting people to play chunky Quake with the arrow keys because that's how they prefer things. But hey, I have a wonderful idea. If people want to play Return to Castle Wolfenstein on their PS5, how about we shut the fuck up and let them? I was primarily a console kid, but I had a lot of friends that had gaming PCs, and this is how I got to play games like Soldier of Fortune. After school one day, my little school friend Chris, a ginger with the face of a lizard, invited me to his place. He had a badass PC and always had the latest games, so I jumped at the chance. I remember the day so well. It was fall of 2003. I remember the big wet Michigan leaves on the ground and the potent smell of the asphalt recently rained on. We played Painkiller first, and that game blew my mind. The metal music, the gothic architecture, the bosses that were the size of buildings. I wondered if the game would ever come to the PS2, lol. Then we played Soldier of Fortune, and oh my goodness. See, I was but a wee teenager, and I had never played a game so violent. It was probably just a few months before Manhunt. Chris's dad was sashaying in and out of the room with the grace of Casper the Ghost, offering us a refill on pizza rolls. I couldn't believe he was so cool with these kids playing this game where the bad guys' innards are pouring out of their abdomen after a shotgun blast to the gut. Then again, Chris's dad was also married to a very stern religious woman with all the sex appeal of a thumb, and it was before I knew what Xanax was, so there's that. Anyway, Soldier of Fortune is a notoriously violent FPS developed by Raven Software before they took a bit and became one of the reindeer pulling the cod sleigh. God bless them, they gotta eat. But here's the thing. Soldier of Fortune isn't simply a shock game without substance. All the kidding aside, it's also a legitimately fun FPS with a bevy of cool weapons, macho characters including Hawk, voiced by Michael Clark Duncan, RIP, and levels that were clearly designed by fans of video games. It's a short game, but every single stage is go, 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 and a blast to play. The Ghoul system allowed seriously brutal location-based damage. Heads will lose a chunk, legs will get blown off as bad guys hobble around and scream, knife wounds are made in real time, and so on. The cool thing is, Raven wanted to do everything they could to prevent little kids from seeing this stuff. The tactical non-violent version was a completely different SKU with a red box instead of a green one, and plenty of labels on the box to indicate as such. The brutality was toned way down. Even the regular version, the one that you're seeing here, could be pass lock protected to prevent a kid from seeing the rough stuff. Raven Software is all class. I don't think Soldier of Fortune needs a complete remake. I think it's phenomenal the way it is, but it could absolutely stand to use a Night Dive remaster. You can currently get the game on GOG, that's the one I'm playing here, but to get it running properly, you need to run Soft Plus, a long-standing dependable mod that allows the game to run smoothly on modern operating systems while replacing the violence lock button with a Soft Plus option. But, as is a common theme in this video you may have noticed, imagine just being able to plunk down $15 or whatever and buy Soldier of Fortune with all the enhancements and compatibility options you'd need right out of the box. Packaging the tactical non-violent version could be a great touch if you wanted to play the game with your kid, give them a history lesson on the brilliance of the Quake 2 engine without the rough stuff. That and some multiplayer servers would be so choice. I only played a handful of hours at Chris's place of PvP back in the day, but I remember having a great time, and I specifically remember the maps being outstanding. Anyway, I'd like to do a full review someday, but to keep it simple, Soldier of Fortune is a truly intense but well-crafted FPS from the glory days of early 2000s PC gaming. A fast-paced, aggressive, fun game without any filler. It's a title that absolutely deserves a high-quality remaster. Also, we went out to dinner, Chris's family and I, and his mom got super pissed at me for doodling a cartoonish skull on a napkin. She almost started crying because she said it was satanic. Xanax and pizza rolls, dude.
Incoming flag! This is fucked up! Hang on! 200 meters! We're dropping short! Crap! Ah! Move! Oh, come on! Get to cover! Let's go!
With a line of impressive and successful remakes and remasters, especially in collaboration with studios like Bluepoint, I can't believe that Sony hasn't put in for a Killzone 2 or 3 remake just yet. Killzone 2 doesn't really need the all-out remake treatment. If there has been an FPS in the history of FPSs that would be incredible running on modern hardware, it's Killzone 2. If you're not familiar with it, this footage you're watching is from a game from 2009. This game is 17 years old. It's about to leave for college. It can already buy its own rubbers and is just about to have its first legal smoke. Killzone 2 had no business looking this good when it came out. I streamed the game recently and I noticed a number of comments from people that were blown away that it was so old. Just as well, I noticed comments from people saying how they missed out on Killzone 2. Bang! It all comes back around, man. And just like with Metal Gear 4, the problem is Killzone 2 has only ever been released on the PlayStation 3. That's it. Don't have a PS3? Too bad. I know. I'm well aware of emulation and the benefits therein. Trust me, I'm very aware. But once more, not everybody wants to go that route. Not everyone has a PC strong enough to emulate PS3 comfortably, and even those that do might not want to deal with all of that. Again, just because it's easy for you, or because you don't mind the risk, you gotta remember, most people would rather just be able to plunk down cash and own it legally, or license it legally. Ugh, you know what they say, if buying isn't owning. But really, I wish that I could. Sony, there is not an FPS in your brand's history that is more ripe for a PC port than Killzone 2. As good as the game looks on native hardware, you can also see that it's really struggling to maintain 30 FPS. Hey, I'm not a snob. I had an absolute ball playing the game on stream recently, regardless of this. I really genuinely did. But if I'm being honest, I just kept thinking about how much better it would be screaming along at 144 FPS. I mean, whew. Killzone 2 is a game with searing intensity that never lets off the gas pedal. The game has plenty of flaws. The story pretty much stinks, it's terrible, and so is the dialogue. And some of the later gameplay sections are unfairly, obnoxiously hard, even on lower difficulties. The weighty movement and controls didn't jive with everybody. Well, for my money though, I have no problem playing this, and I actually kinda like the inertia and the weight to everything. There aren't many games with this type of feel. I also love the desolate hellscape of planet Helgen, and seeing the red eyes of the Helghast as they drop ramp on an APC right towards you still gets me fired up to this day. I love the heavy, punchy weapons with crisp, sharp audio design. It's oppressive and crushing. I don't even smoke, and I need a smoke after playing this game. Now, I would argue that Killzone 3 is debatably the better game overall, but I'll always prefer Killzone 2 for this nearly hypoxic intensity. Nobody's sitting around talking nonsense, no self-congratulatory writing, just a nice, loud respite from the garbage that is reality. Please remaster this gem. It's time. Whew, okay, let's downshift. Okay, so this one is interesting because I had help from another person. I asked Mrs. Hypertension to suggest a game for this list. She thought for maybe a second and said Skullmonkeys. Now, I knew what Skullmonkeys was, but I have to admit I've never played it. I've always wanted to. I even purchased myself a copy from the retro shop recently at her suggestion, so I said, okay, I'll play it and see if it fits this format. And dude, I am in love. I've always had a massive chubby for claymation, and video games like Clay Fighters, Hylix, and a recent indie horror game, The Children of Clay, are big favorites of mine. So I don't know how I missed Skullmonkeys for so many years, but brother, I have seen the light. I am obsessed with the abstract art style and quirky charm therein. It's like a warm blanket on my shattered nerves, and I need a lot more of it. The gameplay isn't terribly complicated, it's a platformer, and you use your butt to squash bad guys. You've seen that before. However, the jumping is crisp and tight. You can pick up a one-hit protection stave, like the mask from Crash Bandy, as well as a one-hit homing bird or projectile, and you can even do a fart clone where you break wind from your head to make a temporary duplicate. If you don't want to play the game after that sentence, I can't talk to you anymore. There's even a song for eating beans. This is that surreal, fever dream madness that attracted me to games like Mouthhole and Hylix, and it works wonders on me in Skullmonkeys. There's also this really surreal, beautiful lullaby when you collect enough ampersand symbols and go to a bonus stage.
Yes, here's a little bonus room where you can play.
But again, the problem is PS1 only, Bubba. Sorry. Now, I have the disc, but it wasn't cheap. And then I used my little Asus external drive to get that image onto my emulator, and it plays like a dream from here on out. Great. But what if I could have just spent a few dollars on a nice, shiny remaster with upscaled textures, save states, a rewind feature, and all the other nice modern bells and whistles that help to prevent hypertension?
I say take my money, honey, and don't spend it all in one place.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. This game is on this list because A, I'd like to know where in the world the actual Splinter Cell remake is. It's been announced. It's real. But, hello, Toronto, do you copy? A morsel, a crumb, a fragment, a sliver, a grain of information. Anything would be appreciated at this point. Just tell me to buzz off and be patient. That's fine. I just need a hint that things are at least in motion. B. I want to talk about a Splinter Cell remaster and how it pretty much already exists. The footage you're watching is from the enhanced mod, courtesy of a talented modder named Joshua. I put the link in the description. Enhanced is as easy to get working as you could possibly hope for, and it's a huge shot of life in the arm for this aging classic. Anyone that's watched my Redux review of Splinter Cell knows how much I love the original game, and I made that video before the mod was released. And then I played the mod and went, shit, I guess I gotta review it a third time. In a nutshell, the enhanced mod lets you do some of the following things. Enable the Xbox font. Yeah, buddy. Enable or disable checkpoints, activate the Xbox difficulty, enable door codes to pop up when you use a keypad, hallelujah, use the pistol accuracy from the PS2 port, disable parts of your HUD, or get rid of the whole thing for, those photo ops. You can pick which suit you want Sam to wear in each level. Oh, and the cut levels are restored. This includes access to the nuclear power plant from the PS2, and this is just a sampling, there's more. Long story short, Ubisoft, give this man and his team some cash and adopt this mod into a proper remaster, and then release it on modern consoles and make your money back and then some. Do you know how many times a month I see someone asking how to play Splinter Cell on their PS5 or Switch, and then I see the usual replies. Sorry man, you can't. Wait, I can't? But I read about how awesome these games are. That really sucks. Ubisoft, there are people that want to give you money, and the majority of the work is already done. USD, the Looney, Renminbi, whatever it is that you lust after so hard, it's out there, waiting to be dumped into your CEO's bonus check or towards the staff's big hungry Howie's pizza party or whatever the fuck. More 2 liters this year, whoa. Please bring back Splinter Cell. I hear what you're saying before you even say it. Clive Barker's Jericho, that game sucks. But does it? Alright, so it kinda does, but this is why I put it on this list. I feel like that if it had some time, some polish, and some improvements, this game it's like a mound of clay waiting to be molded into a really nice little statue. This isn't nostalgia bias. I didn't play Jericho when it was released. My first run was this year on a stream. My long-held impression based on things I had read is that it was a complete dumpster fire, a terrible game without a single redeeming quality. To be honest, when I found my PC copy, yeah, it's over here on the desk. I planned on streaming it as a funny, bad game to goof on. I fully intended on trashing it the whole time, and the live chat would be all of us teasing this slop together. Oh, we'd laugh. And then I played it, and hey, it's actually kinda solid. Dare I say, it's pretty good. We play as a member of the Jericho Squad, part of the US Army Chaplain Corps. Yes, it's that ridiculous. I'm torn because on one hand, I want to make fun of the absurd writing and your teammates being decked out in their moody S&M outfits with goofy haircuts and whatnot, but on the other hand, this silly bullshit was actually really refreshing. This came out in 2007, right before Modern Warfare took off like crazy, and then super serious tough guy military stuff became the norm. Not even the norm, the constant. So, to play an FPS where you're walking up to some psychic, demonic, bubonic tornado or running through streets lined with petrified human remains in a dimension that is most likely hell, fighting alongside a lesbian sniper with phenomenal side chest in leather, it's absurd. And I had a pretty damn good time with Jericho, flaws and all. And there are flaws, to be clear. QTEs were present, and they kind of just show up without warning, and they're pretty lame. But to be fair, you instantly reload and you get to try again, so it's hard to stay mad, but they could be removed. Friendly AI is the thing that needs the biggest work. Not only do your buddies in Jericho do a poor job of avoiding damage, they seem to love it, running right into the open fire and getting downed on a regular basis. In these situations, and in general, another huge addition would be the ability to sprint and backwards dash. Enemies tend to gang up and swarm you, so having a little dash would be nice, and don't make it infinite, 2 dashes and a cooldown would be welcome. Levels are pretty repetitive and are basically a set of hallways and then a bigger room for boss fights, and I guess that kind of sucks. It's a room of monsters, blam blam, sometimes a sort of puzzle, and then a boss repeat. The ending is a mess, and it becomes very obvious that the team ran out of time and money and had to wrap it up quick-like. There are also some occasional bugs, and although the game does run pretty well on PC, the 360 version runs like garbo, which I'm willing to bet was part of the reason the game got hate back when, and that's fair. This is something that a nice remaster could alleviate. I won't belabor the point of accessibility, but I do think that running this game smoothly helps the player to enjoy the positive aspects of Jericho without the frustrating, ugly graphical blemishes. And there are plenty of good things. Ross, the central protagonist, is killed early in the game, but his spirit is able to transfer to Delgado, a Jericho member. Now you can use Delgado's powers and his weapons. Eventually, you're able to hop between each member of Jericho at will, and it's easy and smooth to do so. I'll just say right off the bat, Jones, the squad member that can project his spirit out to possess demons to solve puzzles or whatever, is about as terrible and as clunky as it gets. The controls are horrible in these segments, and he's basically just a lamer version of Ross, even using the same weapons. That and Father Paul's remote healing ability is kind of useless. That said, every other character is surprisingly unique and fun to play with. I really love using Black, the sniper with telekinesis. Her sniper can shoot regular rounds, an explosive charge, or a bullet that you can control. The cool thing is, you don't have to search around for ammo, so when you switch to, Rawlings for instance, in the middle of battle, you don't have to look at 2 empty guns and go shit and try to find another teammate. Delgado has this cool fire specter that he shoots from his arm and a big minigun. Church has this cool blood magic that locks demons in place. Cole slows time and has explosive charges, and on and on. Again, this isn't a game I'd like to see make a return for my nostalgia's sake. I've heard mostly bad things about it over the years, and in typical Reddit fashion, the second someone says they kind of liked it, the murder of downvoting crows come flapping in to suppress them. Point is, I expected a hailstorm of crap, and I was surprised at how much I actually really enjoyed Clive Barker's Jericho. I really think that people who like Clive Barker or general spooky gothic things and want an FPS with a fairly special premise deserve to at least try it at its best. Hey, shoot, skip the remake or the remaster and put it back on Steam for $5 to $10. That would be nice. Sadly, it's probably the last game on this list that would ever get any attention. Well,
what are you looking at? Real tough guy. Can't even tell her you love her.
if there's been a sort of dark horse video game that I've been rambling about to anyone who will listen for 20 years now, it's Prey from 2006. It seems like nobody remembers this game. I know you do. It's got a small but dedicated fan following, and some videos in recent years have put a lot more eyes on it, which is great. But Prey as a franchise has been off the radar for so many years now that it doesn't even exist to the general gaming public, and that's a real shame. In 2017, Arcane made their own Prey ImSim, and someday I'll have to tell you what I think about that. I've heard that they were essentially forced to name that game Prey, but again, another day. But the original Prey, starring Domasi, aka Tommy, a disillusioned young man living on a Native American reserve, never got the sequel that it deserved, despite the huge cliffhanger ending. Prey 2 is actively in development. There was a live-action trailer that it's one of the greatest teasers I've ever seen. The trailer is intense, and that ending shot of the airplane getting pulled into a gigantic alien ship is the greatest what if ever. There was even official physical art put into game boxes for Rage to hype it up. I gather that you would have played as some sort of sci-fi bounty hunter named Killian. I don't know. I'll never know, because Bethesda canceled it. Supposedly, the game was basically done and a whole lot of fun, but was potentially canned over some shady business practices at Bethesda. You know, hey, we want to buy your studio. Lots of money. Just do as we say. Sign here. What? You want independence? Okay, no more money, no more game. But this is all alleged. Surely Bethesda wouldn't stoop so low. For me personally, it's the biggest gaming letdown I'll ever experience, and even researching for this was depressing. Anyway, there's always the first one, and it's easily one of the most special single-player games I've ever played. Human Head Studios was really talented. Prey doesn't need a remake, it needs to be remastered. It was amazing as it was, and it still is. It needs some modern touch-ups, and again, widespread availability. The game starts innocuously. You establish that Tommy wants off the reservation. He doesn't have the heart to tell his girl he loves her, you know. He's kind of a moody bastard, and you might think you're gonna play as a mope for the whole time. The atmosphere is incredible. Being in the reservation bar with a heavy thunderstorm feeding the earth outside, it feels so remote, like outside is vast and scary, but here, everything is okay. So you think. And hey, you have the simple joy of sleazy arcade casinos. You could write an easy joke, but Tommy does it for you.
Worst Indian casino ever.
Yeah, Tommy is a chatty protagonist, much like Duke Nukem or Lo Wang. Perhaps it's the 3D Realms influence, but Tommy's dialogue throughout the game, the way he reacts to everything, it's all done very naturally, and he might even say the thing you were thinking.
That was fucked up.
As I said, Tommy starts out like a grumpy teenager, but when it's time to go, he rises to the occasion. One of the most underappreciated protagonists ever. Prey, quite simply, has the greatest opening sequence, of all time. There are some strong contenders, but the juxtaposition of just another rainy night in the dumpy bar, a violent brawl between Tommy and some barflies that instantly gives way to an emergency broadcast is stark, and it gets your attention. Then the roof of the place peels away while an alien ship abducts you and your family, all to the song Don't Fear the Reaper. Something something more cowbell, remember?
Excellent.
Then you get processed alongside the other humans that have been brought aboard. Seriously, the opening 20 minutes of this game should be experienced by anyone with even a passing interest in this art form. Now, most people from back when would probably remember the Don't Fear the Reaper part. It's fairly iconic, but you may have forgotten how genuinely dark and disturbing this game is. The human abduction thing isn't played for laughs. You'll often find people hiding in corners, praying or mumbling incoherent gibberish as their mind is completely shattered. Or you'll see somebody being dragged away, screaming and begging with literal waste in their underwear. Not much is left to your imagination either. People are shown being processed outright, turned into food to feed the Sphere, the big alien ship. The sequencing is brilliant. You see what happens to some unknown people, and then the game makes it personal when you find Inisi, your grandfather, and Jen, your girlfriend, on these platforms being taken away for, presumably, the same grisly fate. So, the introduction establishes that these aliens do not come in peace and are in fact ruthless and barbaric. It's brilliant, a genuine masterpiece of a prologue. Thankfully, the game isn't all style. The gameplay is stellar. The main hook is the portal system, and the way in which the rules of physics and your perceptions about reality are played with. The basic spot-to-spot transport stuff is great, and this was a year before Portal came out, by the way, but it's not just that.
Whoa!
There's also the magnetic floor gameplay, which presents a lot more mind-bending, gravity-flipped puzzles, and it's just awesome. Prey also has, to me at least, one of the most memorable set-piece sequences in sci-fi gaming history. Notice what looks like a big rock in a display case, yeah? Well, when you climb through the portal, things change. Unreal. And this was 20 years ago, and it's still so well done. Not to compare the two, but this is why I said that Quake 4 aged kind of poorly in my review of that game. So many people got emotional about that. Guys, I used to love Quake 4, and I said it wasn't bad, but of course, people didn't hear that part. It's just that playing it now, it's also trite. It's a decent corridor shooter with some pretty good graphics, but if it wasn't called Quake, it would be even more obscure than it already is. Prey, on the other hand, is as powerful today as it was in 2006. The textures have definitely aged, as all things do, but the alien design, the ship, and the weapons are top tier. The environments are so creative and interesting to play around in. The weapons in particular are excellent.
Excellent.
Including the slimy, powerful hunter rifle, the leech gun, the acid-spewing shotgun that is so satisfying, and an autocannon that has an organic, worm-like 40 mic on top. Yet, despite my praise, it's also obscure. The game is available for download on the Xbox, but the PC port is something you have to find, and it's a pain to get running. A Night Dive remaster of Prey would be a happy day indeed. It's a dark horse of a game that needs a renaissance. I cannot emphasize enough how much it deserves one. Now, this is a game that needs a full-on remake. I recently did a review on Silent Hill 4: The Room, and it was a big one. A 2-hour analysis of Team Silent's final contribution to the genre that they helped pioneer. I said a lot of nice things about The Room, but I definitely had criticisms too. Criticisms that, if a remake comes along and does things properly, could be corrected pretty simply. Firstly, the ghosts. I try my best to be glass half full, especially with gaming and especially with franchises as good as Silent Hill, but the ghosts are just not fun. Even the developers later lamented how they were included. They can't be killed, which is fair, they're ghosts, but they get up a few seconds after you knock them down and they pursue you relentlessly. In the tight quarters of South Ashfield Heights, especially inside of the apartments themselves, this can get really annoying. There are no two ways about it. The concept itself is incredible. These are Walter Sullivan's victims, including people you've recently talked to, and that's great. Very eerie, very cool. But in execution, it's a bag of jizz. Secondly, escorting Eileen. Now, I could dream away about a scenario in which a remake added in completely new areas for the second half of the game, instead of replaying the worlds that you've already visited. But honestly, I wouldn't be disappointed if they didn't do that. The worlds created for the room were great, and replaying through them in the second half wasn't the biggest issue. Escorting Eileen through them, on the other hand, was kinda lame. And I hate to even whine about it because Eileen as a character is great. She's really more of the protagonist than Henry is, and I liked having her around. Sort of. The problem is not the character itself, it's the AI. The pathfinding gets kinda wonky. Eileen will get stuck in certain areas, she'll get stopped by monsters or ghosts, and there's no way to speed her up. A simple follow me command or a hand-holding mechanic like the one in Eco would have been perfect. But no luck. And as a result, the second half felt sluggish, constantly stopping and starting and stopping, waiting around. The thing is, it's not exclusive to Silent Hill 4. Silent Hill 2, as much of a masterpiece as it is, had just as terrible escort mechanics. The thing is, and what makes a Part 4 remake so attractive, is that with the Silent Hill 2 remake, Bloober demonstrated that having a companion doesn't have to be a chore. Maria in the remake was leagues better than she was in the original. Well, from a gameplay perspective anyway. But can I be honest? Aside from the gameplay updates and all that stuff, I just really want to see South Ashfield in a modern engine. As much as I love the old PS2 graphics, and I always go on and on about it, I loved seeing the town of Silent Hill in the SH2 remake. And it wasn't just shiny improvements. Being able to go inside of buildings that were previously inaccessible in the original Silent Hill 2 was a major treat for longtime fans. So imagine the environments of Silent Hill 4 in a remake. Oh man, the apartments, the pet store, wish house, finding a certain someone's body behind a wall. Oh baby. If there is any video game that deserves a big budget remake, that deserves a push to a wider audience, that deserves to be recognized as the masterpiece that it really is, it's Silent Hill 4. Just imagine the cat in the fridge. Ooh. Okay, one more game, and this is a bit of a pipe dream for yours truly, but I still have my original launch day copy of God of War. March 22nd, 2005. My little brother and I rode our bikes 3 hours in total to go multiple towns over to reach the nearest Blockbuster to get our copy. It's a very strong memory of mine. This is one of my favorite games of all time. Is it perfect? No. No. A few of the platforming sections in Hades are awfully touchy, and the multi-Kratos battle near the very end on the hardest difficulty is almost a war crime. But all told, God of War is a fast, fun, and relentlessly brutal action game with moments of majesty that can leave you awestruck, such as when solving certain puzzles or toppling certain bosses. The story is brutal. If you somehow don't know the backstory of Kratos, the protagonist, I won't spoil it for you, but to put it mildly, you're playing as basically a complete asshole. But watching his arc from young bloodthirsty general all the way to the throne atop Olympus that he resents is phenomenal. And in the very first game of this franchise, Sony Santa Monica instantly established Kratos as a top-tier character in gaming. Now, God of War and God of War 2 already received official HD remasters on the PS3, which you can stream on your PS5 if you have that service. I'm talking to both of you now, but what God of War needs is a full remake. The thought of calling to Kronos with the horn, taking down the Hydra, tearing a Cyclops' eye out in Athens town square, or breaking the back of a siren to stop her song, all inside of a new cutting-edge engine is, Whew, I mean, I can only imagine what that would look and sound like. And if you do remake this game, Sony, don't be cowards and remove the adult minigame. So if you don't know, Kratos could have a threesome on his boat, okay? The camera pans away and you do a little quick time event for some extra orbs when everyone, finishes. It wasn't super graphic, but in this day and age, people have become really weird about this stuff. But it's not objectification. These are 3 adults having consensual coitus. You need this game with all of its mature content. Not only is it the artist's original vision, which is their vision, regardless of whether or not you like it, but it's also critical when looking at the modern day God of War games. The reason why Kratos' recent arc was so powerful is specifically because of his past as an animal that chased away the demons in his head with wine, women, and conquests in service to the gods that may not be telling him the whole truth. That constant desire, that lust for absolution that led him to the bluffs is exactly why when a Norse character in the recent games talks a bit of trash and Kratos turns to look at them, he gives them those eyes, any old fan goes, ooh, don't do that. I guess if you have to, give players an option to remove the minigame before they start their playthrough. We definitely don't need a minigame about making love before you're allowed to eviscerate innocent people for health. Anyway, ranting aside, God of War is just a very enjoyable third-person action game with a truly addicting combat system that, to this day, despite being surpassed since, is still heaps of fun. It's truly powerful work, and one of those shining examples of when Sony decides to stake their flag and say, this is the new standard. God of War deserves a proper remake. Having lived through the 90s and beyond, and seeing how video games evolved technologically, mechanically, artistically, and as storytelling vehicles, I want nothing more than to see the medium continue to grow and push boundaries. But I saw a post recently from a younger kid that said he just discovered Silent Hill as a franchise from the Silent Hill 2 remake. His dad got him a copy for his birthday or something like that. And of course, a bunch of old farts came around to gatekeep and gave the kid a hard time. Dude, you gotta play the original. It's the only way to play the game. The remake ruined my childhood, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, a whole new wave of fans have come to the series, and most of them probably don't want to pay $120 for a PS2 disc. Whether you like the new games or not, Silent Hill is relevant again, and I never thought I'd see the day. The remake was a cozy revival, meant to snag our nostalgia dollars while also bringing the series up to modern expectations to encourage new fans to join in. Of course, they chose Silent Hill 2, the internet darling, to start with. They're not fools. Look, man, these companies aren't interested in trading in vegetables or toiletries. That stuff may work in Sherwood Forest, but the cold reality is, whether we like it or not, this is a business, ultimately. I know it sucks, but the power company doesn't want your raw pet food recipe to keep the lights on. If something sells, it brings in money, and this is the lifeblood that encourages publishers to make new games. To be fair, it is a double-edged sword. Nostalgia is also fuel for good old corporate bloodlust. I mean, Skyrim was decent, but really? I guess the point is, you know what? I don't know. I just wanted an excuse to play the Warriors again.